I used to think the sound of keys in the front door was the most romantic thing in the world. That click and scrape against metal home, routine, the comfort of someone choosing to come back. These days, keys make my stomach drop. My wife started moving like she didn't live here, just stored a few of her costumes between rehearsals. My name's Aaron. I'm 32, born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. I drive an ambulance for a living. My shifts run hot and cold sirens, then silence, fluorescent lights, and stale coffee. Lena, my wife, my then wife, works in marketing and hates fluorescent lights. She says the wrong lighting can make anything look cheap. I always thought that was funny coming from someone who could make even our scratch toaster look like a showroom piece with the right napkin and a sprig of mint. We met in college. The version of her I fell in love with had ink on her fingers from drawing flyers, and those little crescent calluses on the sides of her knuckles from learning guitar. She used to sit on my bed and hum songs she'd written, bare feet tucked under her, turning over new melodies until we both fell asleep hearing them. That version of Lena started taking dance classes 12 years later because my body needs joy. That exact phrase. She said it like a doctor's note for recess. This isn't a gym thing, she told me the first week, pulling her hair into a high ponytail I'd only seen on high school cheerleaders. It's social. Salsa, bachata, a little kizomba. It's about connection. I'm pro connection, I said, and pro whatever keeps you from ripping the heads off interns. She snorted and kissed my cheek. Come with me sometime. I've got 2 left feet. Perfect. They'll rotate you out before you hurt anyone. She brought home a pair of tan dance heels with ankle straps so thin they looked like jewelry. She strapped them on and did a figure 8 with her hips while I was loading the dishwasher. I spilled a fork back into the soapy water and forgot about it. That was the last time we laughed together about dancing. At first, it was Tuesdays and Thursdays, beginner classes at an old studio off South Central, in the strip mall with the 24-hour laundromat and the nail place with the neon rose in the window. After the second week, Tuesday turned into Tuesday plus Saturday socials. After a month, it was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and practice night on Wednesday because they needed to rehearse a pattern for class. After 3 months, every night had a pretext. If she wasn't in class, she was cross-training, which meant yoga in a room that smelled like incense and eucalyptus where they whispered about heart chakras while people in scrubs jogged up and down the hallway outside, cold blues and cold browns and the entire mundane, mortal mess of the non-enlightened. I tried not to be a cop about it. I told myself I was proud of her for choosing something that lit her up. I told myself that her happiness was not a threat to my own, but time, even dressed up in music, is still time, and time is the one thing you can't put back in any drawer once you've lost it. The first time I went with her, I looked like a deer trying to step off a treadmill. The teacher tattoos down his forearms, the widow's peak sharp enough to shave with, counted out loud in that sing-song voice all dance teachers have. Basic step, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. He had everyone rotate partners after every pass. Connection, he said, tapping his chest and then gesturing between us all. Lead with intention, follow with trust. Lena looked beautiful under those terrible fluorescent bulbs, the kind that pretend to be daylight but still turn everyone just a little green. She wore a red dress that flared when she spun and a gold chain that winked at her collarbone. When we rotated, she smiled at me with the polite warmth she used for cashiers and cousins she didn't like. I'm not dramatic by nature, but my heart noticed. After class, just as I was working up the courage to joke about how the 1, 2, 3 had been counting my tripping hazard, she said, "You were great, and then, immediately, I'm going to stick around for the social." The what? They turn the lights down, play music, everyone practices. It's a work night. You don't have to stay. She laid her fingers on my forearm like she was asking a favor. It's kind of my alone thing. Dancing? I said. In a room full of people? Yeah, her smile dimmed. Don't make it weird. I didn't, or I tried not to. I drove home and watched a firefighter show on mute while the dog snored at my feet and the microwave clock glowed 1003, 2007, 25-9. She came home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. I told myself it was the room, other people's sweat, and some guy's cheap body spray mixing with perfume and floor wax. It was community. It was connection. Over the next months, I learned the language of her new life by osmosis. Socials and congresses, a team you audition for, shines, which are footwork, and frames, which are boundaries that are somehow firm and fluid at the same time. There were rules about not teaching in socials, rules about asking and accepting dances, rules about Instagram stories, which were called recaps. There was a whole catechism about no drama, which people invoked a lot while telling stories that sounded exactly like drama. A guy named Marco started appearing in her sentences. Marco taught this move where you check your weight and then spiral back. Marco says you should always look up and out. Marco's socials are better because he filters the playlist. His name had rhythm in her mouth, those soft consonants, the roll of it. The first time I asked, "Who's Marco?" she said, "Just a guy." The second time she said, "My coach." The third time, she didn't answer at all. I'm not proud of the night I used her iPad because my phone was dead and 3 texts came through from a number saved as M. It could have been her mom. It wasn't. I didn't unlock anything. I saw what appeared in the banner previews because God and Apple designed temptation into rectangles. Practice after class, I booked the small room. Don't forget your black skirt. That combo looks insane on you. I put the iPad face down on the counter and went outside. The air smelled like creosote. A monsoon had blown through an hour earlier. I stood barefoot in the puddles on our patio and told myself there were 100 innocent explanations. I tried to be direct the next day. I feel like I'm losing you, I said. I get that dance makes you happy, but I miss my wife. I miss our dumb TV and your guitar and the way we used to go to the grocery store together and argue about which salsa is the good kind. She clipped on an earring. Why are you saying this like there's one pie of me and you're not getting a big enough slice? Because that's what it feels like. She let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. I am not your emotional buffet, Aaron. I could see the shape of how this argument would go, how all our new arguments went. If I asked for more of her time, I was controlling. If I admitted I was jealous, I was projecting. If I tried to meet her where she was, if I offered to go to more classes, dance was her space. It was a maze with walls that moved while I was walking. That weekend, she had a performance, a team thing. She came home with a glitter-streaked cheek and a bouquet of supermarket roses with the price sticker still on. I pictured Marco buying those roses in a hurry, a running tab of contempt for the way men are lazy, for the way we pretend haste is the same as passion. Did you get pictures, I asked, because I wanted to be supportive. Yeah, she said, they'll be posted. Please don't comment anything embarrassing. Like, that's my wife? Aaron, her voice was a warning. You know what I mean? The comment I left was, great job, team. It got one like from someone named Bea who had a username with a butterfly in it. There are 100 small humiliations that add up to one big story. The night she came home at 3 and told me the social had run late, as if music had caught her ankle and dragged her. The morning she took a shower before she hugged me hello, the way she angled her phone away when she typed in bed, the canceled dinners, the new dresses, the insistence on separate calendars because my schedule is too complicated to plop into Google like that. And then there was the day I walked into Target and saw her with him in the seasonal aisle, standing in front of a pyramid of plastic pumpkins like the world's ugliest altar. They didn't see me. He touched her somewhere too familiar for someone giving a lesson. It was just a hand on the back, and it knocked all the air out of me like a punch. I didn't cause a scene. I watched them choose a string of fairy lights and a bag of caramel candies and a black skirt with a slit that I'd never seen. I left my cart in the toothpaste aisle and drove around for 40 minutes, hands at 10 and 2 like I was learning to drive again. What I remember most is the absurd thought that I'd forgotten to buy dish soap, and how proud she would be that I noticed before we were down to our last suds. I rehearsed the conversation all afternoon and ruined it in the first sentence. Who's Marco to you, really? I asked, and the word really turned the whole question into an accusation before she could answer. She set down her iced coffee. The cup left a ring on our table I still haven't wiped off. This again? This still, I said. I saw you with him today. In public? She said. Burn me at the stake. Don't do that. Do what? Talk to me like I'm stupid because I don't know your rule book. I swallowed, trying to put feeling back into facts. I saw the way you looked at him. I saw the way he touched you. You don't touch your coach like that. Because you know so much about it. The last word had apathy sharpened to a point. God, Aaron, do you hear yourself? You're jealous. Just say it. You hate that I have something that isn't about you. I hate that you have something you refuse to share, I said. I hate the secrecy. I hate that the minute I ask a follow-up question, I'm controlling. I hate that every time you come home, I feel like I should ask permission to say hi. She rubbed her temples. I don't have space for your anxiety on top of mine. Is there someone else? I said. It was the first time I'd asked her outright. She stared at me for a long moment. Her eyes were glossy, but not with tears, with fury. You want a confession? Fine. I have 12 boyfriends. We rehearse in a pile on the floor. She pushed her chair back and stood. This is your insecurity talking. It's not my job to cure it. She slammed the bedroom door. I stared at the condensation ring on the table until it dried and left a faint white circle, a little moon of what we didn't say. I don't know whether it was the Target sighting or the ring of her cup that tipped me, but I started to notice how every answer she gave me had a seam in it, and if I picked at the seam with one more question, threads came out. She said she had team rehearsal on Wednesday. The studio's Instagram had posted that the studio was closed for floor refinishing. She said she got takeout from the Thai place on 7th. I saw the Grubhub email and the address was downtown. I told myself it didn't matter where she ate pad thai. I told myself that if I acted like a detective, I would make it a crime. And then she announced that she was going to a congress in San Diego for the weekend with the team and that the team was staying together in a host hotel. And there were workshops in the morning and socials until dawn, and I asked, do you want me to come? And she said absolutely not, with the kind of speed that feels like a slap. I can get the time off, I lied. I'll book my own room. She shook her head, ponytail swishing. No. I need this, she said. You're hovering. You want to stand in a corner with your arms crossed and judge everyone while I try to dance? You want to hold my bag? You want to ask me every hour if I'm done being social so we can go upstairs and watch your shows? No, this is my thing, Aaron. I bought a key tracker that looked like a guitar pick and slipped it into the lining of her suitcase the night before she left. I'm not proud of that, but I'm not going to pretend I didn't do it. I don't know what I thought I was protecting, my marriage or my pride. The location pinged as soon as she landed. I watched the little dot cross from San Diego International to the hotel near the marina. The next ping was at 1040 a.m. It moved 3 blocks west, another hotel. It stayed there for 2 hours and 21 minutes. It went back to the host hotel at 4006 a.m. I stared at the little dot until it blurred. When she came home Sunday night with raccoon eyes and a bruise on her thigh the size of a lime, I asked what the bruise was from, and she said, "A lift." "You're doing lifts now?" "Everyone does lifts at congresses." She yawned like the conversation was boring her. "I'm wiped. I had a blast." "In which hotel?" I asked. I might as well have set off a firework in the kitchen. "Excuse me?" I lifted my phone. She clocked the map and her face went hard as a door slamming. "You tracked me?" "I tracked my suitcase," I said, "the one I paid for." "Get out," she said. "Get out right now." "It's our house," I said. "Because I said." "Then get out of my face." She stalked down the hallway, heels snapping, and shut the bedroom door. The click had a finality that set my teeth on edge. People think you know the exact second your marriage ends, that there's a bell. But it's more like a drip in the ceiling that you pretend isn't there until your drywall caves in. The next week we spoke in transactional phrases. "Did you feed the dog? You got a package. I'm late." She left one night in jeans and a black tank top and the ankle straps that looked like jewelry. And at 1007 a.m., I opened our banking app. I saw 2 charges at the host hotel bar from the weekend she was gone. One was for $84, one was for $206. The description said, "Small plates and champagne." I took a screenshot like I was saving a photo of a meteor, proof that something rare and destructive had burned the sky. I didn't confront her with the charges. I did something worse. I went to the studio on a Friday night and stood in the doorway while the room filled with bodies and music. The teacher with the widow's peak, Marco in a fitted shirt the color of an oil slick, was running the social like a DJ and a mayor. He moved through the room with that coach energy, fixing people with one finger while he flirted with the next. He saw me and smiled like I'd lost my tour group. "First time?" he shouted over the beat. "Looking for my wife?" "Aren't we all?" he said, because he had a joke for every scenario. "What's her name?" "Lena." "Oh," he said, like he'd been handed a word he already knew how to pronounce. He pointed with his chin toward the far corner. She was there, back pressed to a wall, laughing at something a woman had said. She wore the black skirt with the slit, the red dress swapped for something looser, like ease itself. Marco walked over to her in 3 strides. I watched the way her whole body changed when she saw him, how her shoulders dropped, how her mouth softened, how she let him take her hand even though she'd mocked me for thinking hands meant anything. The song switched to bachata with the bass like a heartbeat. Marco didn't ask her, he just led. They moved together like a private joke, the kind you're not in on even if you laugh at the punchline. His palm settled at her lower back, a map of ownership. She closed her eyes on the first turn. They danced inches from a mirror, and I watched 2 couples, one in glass, one in flesh, show me exactly how lost I was. I made it 30 seconds before something animal in me wanted to knock his hand off her. I walked outside and sat on the curb and stared at my shoes while tourists in cowboy hats got off a party bike and whooped, and someone's laughter hit me like a slap. I texted her, "I'm outside." She didn't respond. I texted, "We need to talk." Nothing. I went back in. The second song ended and he pulled her into another without looking at her face first. I went to the edge of the dance floor and said her name. She startled. And then she saw me and every expression she had practiced evaporated at once. "Aaron," she said, "what are you doing here?" "Watching." I didn't recognize my own voice. "Is this what I'm not supposed to make weird?" She glanced at Marco. He looked at me like I'd interrupted a commercial. "We're in the middle of a dance," he said, not to me, but to the room, because men like him are always making sure there's an audience at the ready. I kept my eyes on Lena. "We need to go." "We're not leaving." Her chin lifted, the old defiant tilt that used to make me laugh during family arguments because it meant she was about to say something no one else would. "I'm not going anywhere with you right now. It's midnight. It's a social. You're my wife." I didn't mean for it to sound like a claim. I meant it as a reminder. She laughed like I told the wrong joke at the wrong party. Marco squeezed her hand in what he probably thought was subtle support. He and I were 2 kinds of men. One whose hands learned how to make people trust without thinking, and one whose hands learned how to stop bleeding. I took a step back. I am not a small guy. I saw the moment the room decided I was trouble. I said, "How long?" She knew what I meant. For once, she didn't choose to misunderstand me. Her mouth moved, opened, closed. It wasn't supposed to be anything. "I asked you if there was someone else." "And you tracked me," she said, because her defense was always a mirror. "You want me to confess something to the man who treats me like a suspect?" Marco said, gentle in public, "We can take this outside." He meant, "I can stage manage this so I look like a saint when I take the husband aside and ask him to be a gentleman." I turned to him. "I don't talk to other men about my marriage." He smiled like that was adorable. "Then don't. Talk to her." I looked at Lena. "Let's go home." She didn't flinch, but she also didn't move. "No," she said, quiet but firm. And then, to Marco, "I need 5 minutes." He led me out to the parking lot. The baseline disappeared like someone had pulled a plug. The desert night smelled like dust and fried food. A neon margarita across the street blinked a lazy pulse. "What do you want me to say?" she asked. "The truth. The truth is I started going because I needed joy." She crossed her arms and then uncrossed them. And then someone kept showing up, and it felt easy to be with him there. I could be the version of me that isn't tired or angry or married to an ambulance. I work so people don't die. I know, she said softer. You're a hero. Everyone says so. She shook her head like she was clearing it. With Marco, I feel seen as a woman, not a project or a problem to solve. You think I'm solving you? A little. She took a breath. We didn't plan to cross any lines. It was late. There was champagne. After the social, we went upstairs to practice, and then it wasn't practice. How many times? How many times? Does it matter? The fact that she has told me it was more than twice. She must have seen my face because she rushed to add, it changed how I see myself. In a good way. I can't pretend it didn't happen. And us? I asked. She looked at the asphalt. I don't know what us is anymore. I had the kind of anger where you feel nothing until it starts in your teeth and works backward. Here's what us is, I said calmly, which is a terrifying way to say anything. It's a house we bought together. It's a dog who sleeps at the foot of the bed you left cold more nights than not. It's grocery lists and guitar strings and the way you used to leave me notes in lunch bags telling me to call you on my break. It's joy. You're talking like there was never joy here. She blinked. For a second, I thought maybe she was going to cry. There was, she said, and then there was noise. She gestured vaguely towards the studio, the city, the sky. Do you want a divorce? It felt like catching the thrown knife by the blade. Part confession, part dare. I stared at the neon margarita until it wavered. I want my wife, I said. But you don't want me, she said. The me that chose this. I opened my mouth, closed it. I didn't want to be the man who begged a woman to be someone else. I didn't want to be a man who lost his mind because a woman slept with a dance teacher. I didn't want to be anything anyone could predict from a bad script. I said, I'll call a lawyer. She nodded like she'd already penciled into her calendar. I slept at my brother's house that night. His guest room smelled like fresh paint and laundry detergent. I lay there and stared at the water stain on his ceiling and thought about how people in my line of work deal with trauma by narrating it. We tell the story out loud until it scabs. I tried to tell myself the story of what had just happened, but all I had were scenes with no thread, a neon drink blinking on and off, a bruise the size of a lime, a Target aisle that made me into a side character in my own life. Divorce doesn't happen in one appointment, it happens in a dozen little administrative deaths. The joint account becomes 2 accounts. The studio membership goes on her card. The dog is listed as mine at the vet. The living room is divided into piles, hers, mine, Goodwill, trash. When she packed up her dresses, the closet looked like a forest after a fire, wire hangers twisted like bones. Marco texted me once. Unknown number, man to man, it started. I put the phone down and laughed so hard our dog ran into the room and put her head on my knee like I was injured. I blocked the number and called a locksmith. That afternoon, I took the little guitar pick tracker out of her suitcase and flicked it into the bottom of the junk drawer. I would find it there months later trying to find a screwdriver to assemble a bookshelf in a house where no one had ever danced on my time. There are always consequences outside of heartbreak. The studio's owner sent out a mass email about professional boundaries, which everyone treated like a blind item. Half the dance world lives on rumors and righteousness. Friends we shared peeled off to either side of an equation none of them could solve. One woman, Lena, used to carpool with message me that I shouldn't demonize a woman for seeking fulfillment. I didn't answer because none of this was a Facebook comment. This was dishes and flannel and a guitar in its case because I couldn't stand the sound of certain songs. I did something dumb, which is that I went back to the studio alone a week after I moved out. Not to spying forfeits dignity you have to ration. I wanted, God help me, to dance. I wanted to put my hands on a thing that had taken everything from me and see if it would give me anything back. I stood on the edge of the floor and tried to make my feet count out a basic step. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. An older woman with gray hair in a bun and sneakers that squeaked asked if I wanted to practice. I nodded. She led. I followed. My frame was terrible. My heart was worse. She said, "You're thinking too much?" And I said, "That's kind of my thing." We made it through one song without my eyes going anywhere they shouldn't. When the song ended, she squeezed my hand. "It's loud in here," she said, and somehow I knew she didn't mean the music. I went outside and sat on the curb again and laughed until I wanted to throw up. You don't heal by reenacting your wounds. You heal by letting them scar, ugly and honest, and living anyway. Months moved. Papers got signed. The dog learned the geography of a new place. I bought a grill and a plant I did not kill. I answered call after call where everything in the back of an ambulance smelled like copper and citrus cleaner and too sweet gum some nurse had pressed into my palm 4 hours earlier and said, "You're a rock star," because people don't know what else to say when you haul their mother back from the choking blue edge of nothing. On my nights off, I sat with the guitar I used to call Lena's and taught myself songs that didn't belong to anyone we'd ever danced to. The first time I walked into the grocery store without flinching at the salsa aisle, the jar kind, not the 1, 2, 3 kind. I texted my brother a dumb picture of me holding a jar like a trophy. "Look at you," he wrote back, "healing." Lena called once from a number I didn't recognize. "I wanted to tell you I'm moving to Austin," she said like she was reading it off a list. "There's more seen there." I didn't ask for details. She filled them anyway. More socials, more teams, different energy. I hope you get what you're looking for, I said, and meant it in that complicated, human way that means I hope you find joy, and also that you trip on your own shoelace at least once a week. She laughed like she could hear the inside of my head. You always were better at blessing people than you thought, she said. I hung up and stood in my kitchen staring at a plant I had not killed and said out loud because saying it in my head wasn't enough. Amen. When people ask what happened, I don't say my wife left me for a dance teacher because that's the cheap version you throw at strangers to make them flinch. I say we wanted two different lives and the one she wanted didn't have space for me. It's neater than the truth. It leaves out how I watched them in a mirror and felt like a ghost in a room full of bodies. It leaves out how I tracked a suitcase and then tracked my own heart across a map of apartments I thought I would never live in without her. It leaves out the lime-sized bruise and the Target aisle and the way you can cut your tongue on an apology if you keep it in your mouth too long. The last time I danced was at my sister's wedding in Sedona, sandstone fading pink to gray. The DJ playing that Bruno Mars song that makes everyone under 30 jump and everyone over 50 do a little shoulder shimmy and pretend they're not counting. My niece stood on my shoes, and I shuffled us in a tidy circle and thought, it's possible to move to music without making someone into your oxygen tank. My sister whispered into my ear when we hugged, "You're doing great," and I surprised us both by believing her. I don't have a moral for you that fits on a t-shirt. I have a handful of bullet points I keep in my head for the next person who thinks love is a trick you learn in a mirror. 1. Joy that doesn't make space for the people who love you isn't joy, it's an alibi. 2. The words connection and chemistry are not synonyms for permission. 3. No one gets to tell you that asking for the truth is the same as being controlling. 4. If someone needs you to be the villain so they can be the hero in their story, opt out of the casting call. 5. Love is not a private lesson where you learn to follow. It's the song you both agree is worth playing in the same room for a long time with the lights on, even when you miss a step. Sometimes I still hear a bass line through a wall and my body starts to count without me. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. I let it. Grief is a kind of metronome, irritating, reliable, honest. I keep time with it until the song changes. It has, slowly. The beat is softer now. I come home and the keys in the lock sound like a promise I make to myself. I'm here. I chose back. I turn on the lights. I don't dance. I don't need to. The dog thumps her tail, and the plant is still alive, and I hum a melody I don't recognize and let myself like it because no one is grading me anymore. And that's the secret, I guess. The one they don't teach in a studio. You can connect without leaning your entire weight on someone else. You can keep a rhythm by yourself, and it still counts as music. You can end a song before it ends you, and there will be another. There always is. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed listening, make sure to leave a like, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more.